Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Goldblatt. I am the assistant managing editor here at TheWrap, and I am thrilled to be here today to moderate this latest panel in our ongoing series, Conversations on Cancel Culture. Today's discussion, Cancel Culture in Comedy, How Far is Too Far? Comedians have been offending people as long as there has been comedy. It started with Lenny Bruce in the 60s and has continued on through the likes of George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Andrew Dice Clay, Bill Maher, and many others. But over the last few years, comedy, as Billy Crystal recently says, has become a minefield. A comedian's jokes, both new and old, are being judged by a whole new set of standards. And suddenly, come on, it's a joke, just doesn't excuse away offensive material. Has cancel culture put a damper on comedy? Or better yet, should comedy be exempt from cancel culture altogether? That's what we are here to discuss today. And let me introduce our distinguished panel. Nell Scovell is a television and magazine writer, producer, director, and author. She is creator of the television series Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and her TV writing credits include The Simpsons, Coach, Monk, Murphy Brown Charmed, and NCIS. Thank you for joining us, Nell.
Happy to be here.
Maz Jobrani is a comedian, actor, author, and host of the podcast Back to School with Maz Jobrani. His latest stand-up comedy special, Pandemic Warrior, is now available for streaming on Peacock TV.
Thank you, Daniel. It's actually Maz Jobrani, but you can call me Maz. That's fine. Sorry. Don't worry about it. Who's counting?
Yeah.
You're already canceled.
Oh, that's what does it? I'll do much worse before. Suni Reyes is a bilingual actress and comic from Puerto Rico. She recently appeared on Comedy Central's Nora from Queens, starring Awkwafina, the Showtime hit series Billions, and Netflix's 7 Seconds, starring Regina King. Thanks for being here, Suni.
Thank you for having me.
Comedian actress Skye Townsend is a star of HBO Max's 3-time Emmy Award nominated A Black Lady sketch show. She got her start in the industry as a singer at the age of 17, signing with Atlantic Records, and she is also the host of the popular podcast Unpack and Bounce Back. Thanks for being here, Skye.
I'm excited. Thank you.
And comic and actor Matt Rife started out as the youngest cast member ever on MTV's Wild 'N Out. You've also seen him on NBC's Brooklyn Nine-Nine, ABC's Fresh Off the Boat, MTV's The Challenge, and most recently, Matt competed in NBC's comedy competition series Bring the Funny. Thanks for being here, Matt.
You had to say all those, didn't you?
I fit them all in as much as I can.
Thank you, Daniel.
So I want to start out just very generally. Like I said off the top, I think there's a feeling that comedy in general is just off limits for this cancel culture discussion. Nell, I want to start with you. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I think most comedy writers cancel themselves every day, so it's just not that big a deal. I worry that just the expression cancel culture itself is a right-wing talking point. So I just wanted to say that at the top. I mean, I think it's good to talk about judgment culture, which I think is what cancel culture really is.
Maz, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Nell. I as a stand-up comedian, I remember doing jokes about George Bush when we went to war with Iraq, and I had people in the audience saying, "You can't make fun of our commander-in-chief during a time of war." And then later, the past 4 years, when I would do Trump jokes, I had people get mad at me in the audience because they were Trump fans. So they were canceling me from the right and telling me what I could and could not talk about. And I had to remind them the whole point of America is that we're supposed to make fun of our leaders, and we should be able to do that. And I believe, as Nell just said, I think that the right has taken this term cancel culture and has made it a thing where you go, we can't say anything anymore. And the fact is, again, the right's been doing it for a long time. And perhaps there's people on the left doing this now, judging you and saying something might offend me or something you said might be inappropriate. But as a comedian who's been doing this for 23 years, my response to my fellow comedians is always, if somebody tells you that some language you're using is offensive or something you're saying is offensive, it doesn't hurt to self-reflect and go, hey, maybe I need to modernize and keep up with the times because things are changing. And if you want to be relevant, I think you need to change with the times. So that's how I see it.
It's interesting that you both brought up politics right off the bat. Maz, on your podcast recently, you talked to Adam Carolla about this, and he said that he used to think cancel culture came from the right. Like he used to think the religious right would come after him for something he said. Now he feels it comes from the left. I'm wondering, Matt, how do you feel from a politics point of view? Do you feel like it's changed in terms of how cancel culture is perceived by the two sides of the political aisle?
I love that you think I know the difference between the right and the left. Not a clue. I stay out of politics as much as humanly possible. I'm so happy being completely naive on the subject of politics. I'm not sure where it comes from. I can only think about it from my own point of view, and that's being respectful to people, but also being myself. I don't really care where it comes from. I understand progress is very important, but we also do need to maintain our sense of humor and freedom of speech. So, I mean, I see both sides incredibly evenly.
Suni, have you had any experience with this?
Yeah, I mean, like Maz and Nell were mentioning earlier, like it always depends, like who's doing the canceling and who's getting canceled, right? Like, and what cancel means. Like, we're not talking about a Hulu subscription. Like, people are just like, I'm gonna cancel, and it's like, what is that? Because no one really gets canceled. Like, if someone, if the Twitter mob goes after someone because they said something stupid 10 years ago, they're going to point it out, and then you'll either, apologize and you're a better person now, or you're going to stay the same Neanderthal you were 10 years ago. But on the other hand, if you are, a person that is not willing to see marginalized communities that are for the first time being able to speak up and to have, some sort of representation, and you cannot hear their plight is like, like there is a difference. It's not, I don't see it as both sides are the same. It's like one side doesn't want to evolve or doesn't want to see progress, and the other side maybe is now, so we're gonna take it far too, and you can say anything. but it's coming from a place of wanting to have a better society. I feel like, where like the other side's like, no, we like it how it was, we're gonna continue to be racist and homophobic, and this is it. And it's like, but we need to find a middle point of like, yes to progress, but also we can find humor in all things. Like, all things, you can find the humor. If you're not able to do it without insulting someone, then you should not be doing comedy.
That's a good point. Skye, have you had any issues with this so far in your career?
Yeah, I think what's dangerous about cancel culture, the dangerous part is, if you're willing to grow, some people cannot release your mistakes. Like, if you said something stupid 9 years ago on Twitter, you apologize for it, whatever. I think certain people just do not want to allow you the room to grow. And that's the part that I think is dangerous. I think call out the BS always, because I've always been raised to believe that if the only way you're funny is by being mean, you're not funny. Like, if that's your only way to go is bullying, like, you really don't have chops. But I think it's dangerous when people go, I learned my lesson. I didn't know, I wasn't raised like that. I never had friends, who lived like this. I didn't know any better. I'm sorry. And people go, no, remember that tweet from 2011? It's just, to me, I think it's dangerous because it doesn't allow us any room. For me, I think people are just really, really sensitive, these days. I do character work, and I posted a character with glasses and she had a gap, and somebody goes, this is so offensive. I have a gap. What are you saying about people with a gap? And I'm like, baby, look, I get it, but I'm like, this is not the hill to die on for me. I think unless you're doing kids cartoons, you're going to offend somebody. And so it's a really fine line. But I think if somebody's willing to grow, we have to allow them the space to educate themselves, and we can't wait, hold that over their heads for 30 years. But there's some stuff that is unforgivable. And I think as human beings, we all know, okay, that we can't get over,
And if I could just like, I'm going to jump in here real quickly with what Skye just said. She gets that feedback and she's able to go, hey, thank you for the feedback, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And if we got to really look at the term cancel culture and how it's been hijacked again to say, oh, I can't say anything, where you got to look at, for example, the people that are complaining on the right of the political spectrum are the same people who canceled Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee. He lost his career to that. They're the same people who complain when the organizations, Major League Baseball pulls out of Georgia for their trying to restrict voting rights for people of color. And then they go, well, Major League Baseball shouldn't be doing this. I want to cancel Major League Baseball. So they go and they use the same tactics, and they don't call it cancel culture. They call it something else. And one of the things we got to remember with all of this is at the end of the day, we live and die by basically people's opinions and what they decide. So you can go on stage and say something racist and see how that plays out for you in your career. Maybe you'll find a career. I know comics who've gotten more racist and have actually gained followers on the right. So you live and die by it. And so similarly, all these things that are happening, again, when the right complains about, Major League Baseball or Twitter taking, let's say Trump off of their platform, that's private enterprise. You live and die by that. So they have it. They can do whatever the hell they want. They're a private company. They go, we're kicking you off for whatever reason it is. And so, I just want to again say the repercussions. People will give me feedback sometimes on a tweet I said, and they'll go nuts, and you give it 24 to 48 hours and life goes on. But if you say something really extreme, that's harmful, that is something that perhaps you kind of deserve to be the pushback, then, hey, man, you went for it, live and die with it.
It does seem like there's this sort of subgenre of cancel culture, which is I'm going to go back and find everything you've ever said and judge you.
It's someone's job. It has to be someone's job.
So I guess the boundaries move, they change, the norms change, people evolve. We as a society in general evolve. My wife and I were away this weekend and we were watching an old episode of Arrested Development, and we were both shocked at how many transphobic jokes were in this one episode that we both watched. We were like, well, that would clearly never fly now. Is it fair to go after someone for their old? I mean, this is why Kevin Hart didn't get to do. I'm seeing all sorts of no's right off the bat. Suni, what do you think? What do you do in those situations?
Because like Skye was saying, people we should have the chance to, have an opportunity to show people that we have evolved, or that we have learned from our mistakes, and that we have, we are not just doing things from a place of hate. Sometimes people do things, I think this guy also mentioned this, from ignorance. They just don't know any better. They were not exposed, and people have lost common sense. Like they just cannot tell between someone truly being hateful and mean and someone that is just, okay, you're just a little dumb and you need to be told that you're dumb. And hopefully now you will learn this lesson and do better, but I don't think someone should, completely, if they did something 10 years ago and the Twitter mob went after and it was like, we found it, if that person truly has changed and recognize, that was wrong, we should let them, especially if they're a comedian, because at the end of the day, comedians, we're like the pulse, we should be the pulse of, what's currently happening in society. I'm sorry, my neighbor has decided to start scrubbing her floor. I don't know if you hear, it's like, so, like having, as a comedian, we filter what's happening in society, in politics. If you do satire, I do satire a lot. So I try to bring laughter to people who are living in oppression, or cannot see themselves, or are tired of having an insane struggle on their daily basis. So I want to bring something, that is funny to them, but we cannot forget that comedians, because we have that filter, we should be able to evolve, and we should be given that chance. We should not be just like, if you're a politician and you did something, that was illegal, and there's a trial involved, you just did something illegal. You're not being canceled. Like you're being held accountable. But as a comedian, as an entertainer, that you're trying to like filter things that are happening, pop culture and politics, we should be given a shot, genuinely.
Nell, I'm wondering, do you ever look back at some of your stuff and cringe, or are you worried that some of it might come back? Like you have such a a great career. How do you feel about some of your old stuff?
Oh, I definitely cringe. And I think, we've made huge progress, especially in the way jokes are written about people who are gay or, there's a great quote I loved in the Beastie Boy documentary. So the Beastie Boys' early lyrics are super sexist. And then they kind of have this evolution, and they move away from that. And someone attacked Adam Horowitz for flip-flopping, and he said, I'd rather be a hypocrite than stay the same person. And I do think we, as a culture, evolved. We each as individuals evolved. I think if men could learn to say I'm sorry, it would solve a lot of problems. But it was making me think. There was a few. This is a while ago, like 6 years ago. There was a discussion of whether you could write jokes about rape, and I was discussing it with Gloria Steinem. Whoa, name drop.
Wow.
And she was saying, no, we really shouldn't joke about rape. And she has a great sense of humor, but she still felt that. And I was saying, no, you could still joke about rape. I really believe you can joke about anything in certain ways. And we finally got to an impasse. And so I just told her one of my favorite Sarah Silverman jokes, which is, I got raped by my doctor, which for a Jewish girl is bittersweet. So she laughed, and I said, see? And we sort of dissected the joke, and we realized that, okay, the reason it feels okay is A, it's being told by a woman, B, it's really a joke about the Jewish culture, and B, rape is bad. It's bittersweet. Like, it is the bitter. So it's not making fun of rape exactly. And then another one of my favorite rape jokes is Amy Schumer's. And she says, and it's just very simple. She says, we've all been raped a scooch. And I feel like every woman hears that and goes, yep. So, and that's what Suni was saying. It does bring you together. That is a shared experience.
Yeah, I did not think you would be the one to be dropping rape jokes today. I love where we've gone. I want to play a video for you guys that I think comes up well at this point of the conversation, which, I think when we talk about cancel culture and comedy, I think everyone would agree that at the end of the day, if the joke is good, as you just pointed out, if the joke is funny, you can get away with it. And if it's not, then you can't. And it's tough to decide who the arbiter is. So this video is from early May. Comedian Pang Dang posted it. I don't know if you're familiar with the situation.
Yeah.
A comedian, I believe his name was Tony Hinchcliffe. Tony Hinchcliffe. Pang Dang introduced him to come on stage. He'd performed before him. Tony then comes up on stage. This is that video.
Give it up for the one and only Tony Hinchcliffe, everybody.
One more time for the filthy little fucking chink that was just up here. While all you fucking race traitors are whooping and hollering, I'm back there watching you puking in a fucking bucket. Oh, we making a gunpowder. Oh, you want extra soy sauce. Oh, you borrow money from us. And you guys just eating it up, you fucking pussy.
Yeah, Skye, I think your reaction was pretty on point there. So I think this is an example where there's nobody who could really say that was funny. But I guess maybe some people might. So what are your thoughts about that? Skye, go right ahead. You have so many things you want to say.
Okay. I personally don't enjoy humor that makes me feel guilty watching it. That felt like sitting and watching the bully at school just go in and you cringe because you don't want to be next. Personally, for me, that's not the type of humor I like. It feels unnecessary. It felt like there's no message. There's no real joke. It's just offensive. And I think that certain jokes can be offensive, but at least like be making a statement or have something to say or be witty or be clever. That just felt like bullying, and it just felt nasty. And that's the type of humor that I think that's the one we should be talking about, is where it's just there's no point to it. That was just literally bullying. You were just getting introduced. You should have opened your set with your own material. It had nothing to do with him. He did his job. I think that is bullying. That is not okay. And and race, it's like, you're able to speak on your own experiences, right? Like, I can get away with a lot of jokes about Black culture because I'm a Black woman. I can say shit that most people can't, excuse me. But I think that there's other people that, you know, speak from your own experience, just talking about Asian culture and slurs. There's really no humor there. It's kind of just bullying. It was really hard for me to watch. I honestly can't even, as a comedian, I have a, you know, I did, that was, no.
Matt, you were familiar with this. I'm wondering, what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, this was a tricky situation because obviously point A is it's not funny. Now it's an interesting situation because that isn't the full video. A couple of comics, like a week or so after this was released, other comics released the entire video of Peng's set and Tony Hinchcliffe's set. So for anybody who might know Tony, who's in the LA comedy scene, like, you know, this is his brand. He's very shock value, over the top, offensive humor. Now, there is an audience for that, despite people not liking it. It's not for me. Obviously, he tanked. He did not do it well at all. It came off purely offensive. There was no clever thought put into it whatsoever. If you watch the entire video, you get at least the context of what he was going for and the terrible things he was saying. You could see the angle he was trying to take. It just wasn't executed well at all. Now, one of my issues I have with the entire situation is Tony's total lack of creativity and humor. Like, just didn't come up with good jokes at all. If you're going to be offensive, that's fine. There's a line for that you're allowed to walk as long as it's funny. My issue is posting a video on Twitter of something like this purely in the context of what you just showed, because obviously everyone's going to have the exact same reaction Skye did, as you should feel that way. 100%. It looks absolutely horrendous. But as a grown man who knows how to confront someone who does something awful, and how I would like to be confronted if I were to ever offend somebody to this level, I wish Peng would have went up to Tony first and been like, hey, that was incredibly not cool. Like, what you did was made me feel this way. And then if Tony was like, yeah, screw you, I don't care what you feel, yeah, then by all means try to ruin this guy's career. But I hate people taking the internet as an avenue of revenge, because the internet is ruthless. And again, you don't get context or intent. So, I mean, it's a very tricky situation. I don't think anybody is right in the situation.
Maz?
I agree that the context is so important, because as Matt said, I know Tony. I'm actually friends with Tony, so I hadn't seen that clip, but I don't know what the context of it is. I mean, obviously the words are horrible words, but the fact is, like, I've been on stage before as an Iranian American, finished my set, and I bring up another comedian who I'm friends with, and they'll go up after me and be like, "Oh, give it up for Maz, funny guy," but I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't trust him on an airplane or whatever. And that's just us poking fun at each other, or that person making fun of me. And I see that, okay, we move on. Now, part of it is also, it's like, read the room and also read the world. So right now we're under, Asian hate and all these things happening. And so, maybe you don't come out so aggressively. Maybe there's because I think part of what, again, I don't know what Tony's intentions were, but hearing what he was saying, sometimes a comedian will go there and like go to the extreme to show how stupid the mentality is of that thought process. So I personally would have wanted to see the rest of the act if he, pivots and goes to like whatever. He doesn't have to say, "Oh, I'm kidding, that's my friend," but there's something, you know what I'm saying? Like, it could be that you get out there, you say something so extreme to point out how stupid that mentality is. And who knows, again, as Matt was saying, I know Tony, and there's a handful of comedians who come from that roasting world. So it could be that they're backstage roasting each other, and then it carries on stage. Again, taking the way we just saw it, and if you don't know who Tony is, you're like, oh my God, who is this guy? And why are they saying these words? And I can see how it could be hurtful. So that's where, as comedians, we also gotta like gauge it. There's been times where I'm about to send a tweet and I go, oh my God, this is going to be totally misconstrued. The way I'm writing it is not at all what I'm trying to say. And I go, you know what? It's not worth the 5 seconds of possible, the retweets I'm going to get. Or similar to Tony, perhaps there's a moment where you go, do I really want to go lead with this? Someone's going to put it online. And then, is it worth it to just transition from the previous comedian into my act? Nah, maybe I'll do a quick little jab and move on. So I just want to say context is very important.
Couple quick things, just to close the button on that video. Pang posted it himself, and he said in an interview that he didn't want to get Tony canceled. He thought it would be a teaching moment. Tony hasn't commented on it thus far. You guys all brought up a couple points I want to circle back to. And Maz, you just said yours. I'll ask this to the rest of you. In this age of cancel culture, have you found yourself, I think Twitter is probably the best example of this, with a joke written out and then gone, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't tweet this because of the culture that exists now? You seem like
just depend. It depends on how funny it is to me. If it's like this is kind of a funny thing, but then I weigh the consequence of like, I know XYZ people might not like this or whatever, then yeah, I'll weigh the benefits to me if I think it's funny enough, because I'm never going to make a joke, period, that comes from a dark place of actually wanting to hear somebody ever. And that's kind of the problem with Twitter, especially, is you don't get tone or context, and you don't know the person personally, so you don't know where they're coming from. But I also think the flip side of that, and being a comedian, it's kind of your privilege, I suppose you could say, is that you do deserve to say what's funny to you. By definition, if it makes one person laugh, it is funny. It's just, is it worth to you making the people you want to make laugh? Is it worth that to offend these people? If those people already probably aren't going to like you no matter what, regardless of this one joke you make, might be worth it, might not. It's kind of up to you. You can joke about whatever you want, and there's just going to be people that don't like it.
I want to go back a little bit to the video and Penn, sure, because I was thinking sometimes for comedians who are not white male, our journeys are very different. Like, we have to break through barriers and through places that are run by white male, and places that it feels like we're here in the dungeon. We're gonna bro it out and just like talk to us white male, and that's that. And then you have someone like Penn coming in, and he is an Asian man, and he's probably super fun, and he did his thing on stage to what looked like from the video a mostly white male audience. And then you bring, this guy that just like completely demoralizes what this comedian represents as a human, not as a he didn't talk about his jokes. He was you guys were laughing at his jokes and then talk about he just started demoralizing and insulting him, in such a mean way that I think Penn probably posted because he it's not the first time. It probably is not the first time that he's been in that position where someone makes fun of him as a human, of his background, his race, what the stereotypes are used to, roast. You can roast people without going towards mean stereotypes that are hurtful to an entire community, as we have seen with the attacks on the Asian community. So I feel like maybe, in a more even field world, he probably would have done the 101 and, hey, bro, that was like kind of like messed up. Don't do it again because I'm really pissed. but he probably, you know what? I am so tired of this, because he probably sees it in real life. He's seen it before, at the clubs or whatever he goes on tour. He's treated a little bit like, oh yeah, we got the Asian guy, whatever. Like, but I'm the real bro. And he got tired of it. You know what I mean? And yeah, there are hopefully, Hinchcliffe, like that's how you pronounce the name, right? Did I say correctly? Like, he will learn from his lesson. I would have I don't know if he said any apology, if he has like come on said any apology, because I would think if he comes out and really recognizes, yeah, that was messed up, instead of playing a victim role, it's like, bro, no, just like, hey, that's messed up. I heard that apparently Penn has opened for him before, so they do know each other. So it's like, to just really take the opportunity to apologize and grow and not do that again in that way. Just thought of that because, like I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, Penn should have not posted, because we don't know. People get fed up with these attacks because they're personal attacks. And he probably was like, you know what? If you want to continue to work, you're going to have to do better. And that's probably why he did that. Now I forgot what the question was, Daniel.
I think I did too, but Matt wanted to jump in. Matt, go ahead.
I only wanted to interject to answer, kind of a question that feels like you had, just because I'm the only one who seems to have seen the entire video. This is only to fill you in on that. You said that Tony was only going after like his race and his culture and stuff, and like him as a person, and that he wasn't going after his jokes. He does. That is actually the angle you see he takes. That every single one of the stereotypes that Tony goes on to list poorly are all jokes that Peng did in his set right before Tony. So Tony was going up there and sarcastically making fun of what he was talking about.
So
again,
what he's
very poorly.
Okay. So what he said, actually Penn had said before?
Yes. Peng was talking about those things. Again, what Maz was saying, context is so important.
So again, Matt, I haven't seen it. So maybe here's my question: is his maybe underneath it all, and here's Suni where it gets confusing, because maybe underneath it all, if these guys have a friendship and a relationship, maybe underneath it all, there's a message Tony's giving to Peng to go, don't lean on the stereotypical jokes. Be go beyond that as a comedian, because as a comic of Middle Eastern background, I know sometimes people like, you'll do a joke about being Middle Eastern, people are like, that's hacky. Why are you doing that? You should go, who are you? What's going on in your life? Especially if I have it, I don't know what the relationship is, but if I have a relationship with my opening act where it's almost like older brother, younger brother, doesn't matter what the ethnicity is. Let's say the jokes, forget if it were ethnic jokes. Let's say there's a comedian who's opening for me and it's all fart jokes. At some point I might go on stage and be like, give it up for, Johnny Fartman. It's all farts. Guys, what has he been doing his whole life? Johnny, you told this interesting story backstage about how your mom used to leave you to take care of your 2-year-old brother. Why do you talk about that? What is wrong with Johnny? Now, I have a good relationship with Johnny. We're brothers, but I'm trying to drive home the point to Johnny. Get rid of the fart jokes, lean into who you are, and don't make it all stereotypical. Again, I have no idea what Peng's jokes were. I don't know what their relationship is, but I'm just saying, again, context is so important here. And I, as a comedian of an ethnic background, if I went on stage and did 15 minutes of just like, oh, I go to the airport, they won't let me through, and then, the terrorist this, terrorist that, and it's like 15 minutes of what feels hacky, and if the next comic went up and made fun of me for doing that, I've had comics say things, I mean, people would say, oh, if it weren't for 9/11, you wouldn't have a career. And I'm like, really? You're going to say that? And I go, if it weren't for you raping and pillaging a whole country of Native Americans and then African
All right,
Americans.
Maz, this feels personal.
You know what I'm saying, Matt? You wouldn't have a career if it weren't for.
I might be doing pretty well in the UK. You don't know that. You don't know this.
So my point being, context is so important, and that's the problem with the sound bites and going after each other.
Well, why would he post it? Why would he post it if that was if Peng knew that he said those jokes before? I'm like, why would he post?
I don't know. I don't know what their relationship is. Perhaps Tony's saying that to him. And again, listen, I could be trying to read depth into it. And in all honesty, it might be that Tony hates Feng and Chinese people or whatever, Asian people. Sorry. I don't even know if Feng's Chinese. But my point is, context is very important, because we do we do judge off of like one clip and don't go further. So sorry, Nell wants to say something. Sorry.
Well, there's a bigger context too, which is white men, cis white men have predominantly dominated, and I can't imagine that reverse happening. And so clearly Tony felt entitled to go out and do that. And I think one of the nice things about what's happening right now is we're shifting the discomfort. For centuries, women and people of color have sucked up all the discomfort of the situations we were put into. And I agree. I think Pang was trying to say, you know what, you made me feel bad. Now, how do you feel? How does that look to the rest of the world, where it's not just white men, but a larger audience? And people have been canceled throughout history. Marie Antoinette was probably walking up to the guillotine saying, "Ugh, cancel culture." But what's different now is who is getting canceled. And Hollywood, for as long as I've been in it, which is 3 decades, it's a place where if you call someone else out on bad behavior, you're the asshole. And that never felt right. And as someone too who was sexually assaulted by a head writer early in my career and just never talked about it, like, I love that now we're at a point where people are speaking out. And the last point I want to make is, think about how we say when women or people of color speak out, we call them brave. So what does that mean? You're brave in the face of danger. So it's our culture acknowledging that by these people speaking out, they are putting themselves in danger. And I think it's, even if the pendulum swings too far, it was necessary, and we'll end up in the middle.
It's, first of all, Nell, I would never disagree with you because I want to be on one of your shows so bad someday. Ever, I would never disagree. I would disown white people and any day of the week. Just toss it up there. Send me the audition. I would just piggyback on top of that, saying it's incredibly needed progression that tables are turning and that people are being held accountable regardless of their gender or race or who they are or what power they hold. I just want people to be careful of, I don't want somebody, and I'm always thinking as representation as the only white male in the,
you represent them
forum
all.
for this. Yes, representing them in this forum. I want people to be careful of yes, exactly.
Except the man.
Except for the men. I want people to be careful not to be like, okay, now that something bad happens to a straight white male, everybody just goes, good, how does it feel? Because as someone who's 25 and is a pretty brand new straight white male, I haven't been on top for that long. So for me, I want equality to really mean equality. I don't want, white men have to be taken down a notch as well. I don't think that's the case for. I want everybody else to be brought up to the same privilege. I don't want people to be broken down to like, see, now everybody can get in trouble. How about nobody get in trouble? Everybody just be a good person. That's all. That's what I think of when I think of equality and people being held accountable.
Okay, I love brand new straight white male.
Fresh out of the box.
Right,
Fresh, literally.
I love that.
You have that new white guy smell. It's good.
But you know what?
I was just going to throw out a line that I just love, which is that when you're used to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And I think we're in that spot. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm like, where's all this white privilege I've heard about for so many years? It's being dwindled. I didn't get to cash in my chips.
I mean, but honestly, I don't think, like Joe Rogan was saying a few weeks ago, that we're getting to a point where straight white male won't be able to speak. And it's like that, you you rule the world, so you will always be able to speak. Like, that will never, you know what I mean? Hopefully, like Matt was saying, we can like now have, you know, people being allowed to speak at the same speed and as many times as white men have been able to speak. But I don't think this is like that. That's what I feel like the right is making it seem like it's just like, oh, no, the white men can't talk. And it's just like, I don't think it's that. It's like the Rainbow Coalition has never been prettier, you know, as Fred Hampton said it. Like, I feel like I think we have the capacity as a society to truly all come together and have an understanding of where everyone's pain and oppression is coming from. So it's not just like, you know, white men against everyone else. There's a lot, you know, of pieces moving around where we just have to have a better understanding and be more compassionate about everyone, so that we can recognize our own privilege in our own, you know, shoes and positions, and then, okay, this, I'm gonna pass the mic. I'm gonna pass the mic here. Let's make something together, instead of like, you know, this division that I feel like it comes from like the reactionary right that is just like, you know, refusing to evolve and keep up with the times. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think people forget to realize that the sooner everyone is nice to each other and the sooner everyone has equality, the sooner you will be able to make jokes about people that you want to make jokes about, because there will be no punching down once everybody is equal. So
that's never going to happen, Matt. That's never going to. I mean, that's just.
I know, but it's a dream.
No,
okay,
but no. But here's the thing. The thing is this is all part of the free market, right? So at the end of the day, it's you live and die by what you say. So if you are not reading the room, if you're not reading the environment that we're all living in right now, then you go for it. Go out there and try a joke about some group that you think is going to be funny, and you will see the results of it. And the free market will tell you where you are. And I think that's where growth needs to come. There's certain words 40, 50 years ago, people would use the N-word like it was no big deal. People would use the F word in the LGBTQ community like it was no big deal. And that's why when you go back and look at stuff from 30, 40 years ago, we all cringe and go, ooh, gosh. So you have a choice to either grow with the times and respect other people and hear them, by the way. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people totally ignore or they just excuse things. They go, no, you're being too sensitive. You know, that's what we always used to do back in the streets. We used to say this and this. And someone comes up to you and goes, hey man, when you use those terms to describe me, I used to get bullied in school with those terms. I used to get beaten up, and it you know, destroyed me in many ways. And now you're using those terms and it ain't cool. So we need to listen to people that have been marginalized, that are now getting a voice, and stop with the victimization of like, oh, white people can no longer say. No, you can say whatever the hell you want. And there will be an audience, by the way. Again, I'm telling you, I've seen a few comedians that are far right get more far right, and their fans have grown. All right, good for you. Go live there. But those fans of yours in the next generation will be dying out, and your career won't have any longevity. So it really comes to that. And by the way, who cares about the career? What's in your heart? If you're a jerk, if you're a dick, then you know what? I'm sorry for you, because
money's not going to buy a soul. All that money's not going to buy you a new soul. Okay. You're going to die with a horrible soul.
Can we say dick on the rap?
I just did.
And I played that other video before. We're already crossed.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I didn't know if that was gonna be
I want to go back to something that I kind of touched on a little bit on a more individual level. And now I want to talk on a more grand level. You know, I said off the bat in the open that Billy Crystal said the world of comedy is kind of becoming a minefield. And Chris Rock had a quote recently that I thought was interesting about cancel culture. And he said, quote, "What happens is everybody gets safe. And when everybody gets safe and nobody tries anything, things get boring." Do you think people are pulling back? And do you think the world of comedy is suffering as a result of all of this?
Skye, let Skye talk. Skye hasn't talked for a minute. Go, Skye.
I've just been listening. I'm loving it. I mean, okay. I think I totally agree that I think if everybody's tiptoeing, eventually it is going to get very boring, because a part of comedy that is exciting is that it's risky, you know? But I think that in order to back up your jokes, there has to be a level of confidence and fearlessness that you attach to it, whether it be Paul Mooney or Richard Pryor. Like, they said what they said, you know? And so I think if there's a missing confidence, or you're using it just for shock factor, it's going to feel cheaper than somebody who goes, look, I'm really speaking my truth, you know? But it's not even down to the joke, because it could be a really funny joke about Black women, but somebody might say and it's offensive, versus me sharing it and it's my truth. I think, you know, whenever I'm going to say something that could be possibly offensive, I attach it to my truth, so that I go, you know what, that's my story and that's just how I'm telling it. I'm never going to get offensive with somebody else's truth. That's just personally not how I navigate. But I think confidence adds a lot, because there's some people who I see and I go, oh, you just thought that was offensive and you're hoping they clap, but you're going to be nervous if they don't. Versus a Chappelle who does not care if you clap, he still thinks it's funny, you know? So I don't know. I think that comedy has gotten sensitive, but the world has shifted in a really crazy way. There are certain things that we thought were okay 5 years ago that now the whole room stops and they go, no, this is really offensive despite what you feel. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I like to walk up to the line and almost cross it. But when I do that, I make sure that my experience is attached so that I can own it personally.
Also, you got to look, again, going back to kind of like living and die by what you say. I'm thinking of all the things that I said that I thought weren't controversial, but ended up being controversial. So one of the things that happened was under Trump, whenever I do Trump jokes, there was always one or two people towards the end, with like a couple times it happened where they go boo or something. This one lady was yelling at me, and I just very nicely was like, this is amazing. What a great country where you can have your opinion. I can have my opinion. And I go, you don't have to stay. You can leave. That's a beautiful country. So the whole point was, you can do what you could. This is me, just like Skye was just saying. This is my point of view. I despise the guy. If you love the guy, go start a blog and do your own blog, and maybe you'll have people that'll follow you. So that wasn't controversial. It wasn't controversial to me to make fun of Trump, but it became controversial to somebody else. More recently, I've talked about get your vaccine, and I see on my post people go, why you can't tell people, bully people into getting their vaccines? I go, then don't get your vaccine. I don't care. This is my point of view. I've done my research. I want to get the vaccine. I'm telling you, talk to your doctor. Might be a good idea to get the vaccine. If you don't like this thing, then stop following me on Instagram. If it's really that bad, then that's fine. Move on. But I'm not going to stop saying what I want to say and being who I want to be, because this is who I am. I was just talking to I had Ricky Williams, the football player, on my podcast, and he said something I loved. He goes, I am getting to know me better, and he goes, I want to make a living being me. So the idea is, we're in this world now where you have your own brand. Like you were talking about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's got his own brand. He doesn't need a network. He doesn't need this, that. He puts his brand out there and people come to him. And sometimes you don't have to agree with him all the time, but people like him enough to go, this is who I'm going to listen to, you know, and similarly to a lot of people. So I don't agree with Chris Rock in that things are going to get boring, because there's enough people out there. They're going to keep saying things, whether it's Sarah Silverman, like Nell was saying earlier, whether it's Chris Rock, whether it's Rogan, whether it's Chappelle, whether it's Matt Rife, whether it's Scott, whoever it is. We're going to have an idea where we're like, oh, this is great. Oh my God, the gap tooth character is amazing. And you're going to get 100 people going, I love it, I love it, I love it. And then the 101 is going to be like, you're making fun of the gap tooth people? What is wrong with you? And you go, listen, man, this is me. Why don't you start your own gap tooth sketch show and move on with yourself?
Yeah.
Nell, you were shaking your head during part of that.
I think to your question, I don't think they're going to get boring. I think people are going to have to work harder and be more clever. So a couple of weekends ago, there was a shot of Trump playing golf, and he looked slimmer, and there were a lot of comments about that and then jokes about it. And on my timeline, I started seeing a lot of people posting like, you know, he's a horrible person, but can we not attack the way he looks? And so I posted, I see Trump is golfing, and to my eye, it looks like he lost 500,000 lives.
Ooh, good one.
And so, I found a way to twist that bias and I hope make people laugh in a very sad way.
It's witty. We love wittiness. We love
That
a
was
root
good.
to the joke.
That was pretty good.
You just have to know when you're a comedian, you have to have that filter. Like, you have to make us laugh first, and we have to know, okay, this is funny. I am treading that line, but I know it's funny. So the majority of people will like it. There'll be a couple of, people that will not, but the mission has been accomplished. And it's so funny because, Maz, you were talking about like the vaccine people, the anti-vaxxers coming after you. Like, I've gotten more hate after getting the vaccine just for being a pro-vaccine person than from being a Black Latina. Like, literally, like the most hateful, literally, die, you zombie robot, you idiot. I'm like, oh my God, like all these comments. Just like, so it honestly, speak your truth. Like we've been saying, speak your truth. And I don't think when it gets boring and safe is when people are trying to pander, and people that are not using their own filter to like, or are not growing into their new selves that are just like they're checking boxes. They're doing jokes. I'm going to do a gay joke, but it's going to be pro-gay, and it's going to be funny because I'm going to say all the nice things, and then I'm going to do a Latino joke, and because they're just checking boxes and trying to be safe and please the Twitter mob or whoever goes to the clubs. And it's like, you're not saying anything. So that's why it's like safe and unfunny, because people are trying to like fit into, like, they want to be liked in a way that is not authentic. They want to be like, I'm progressive. And it's like, but you're really a closeted conservative, and you need to just, come in, really like know yourself.
It is weird that we do kind of live in a time where we would almost rather people not lie to our faces and not be them true selves than just publicly be themselves. Because like you're saying, like somebody happened to apologize for something. Like, how many times do you see a celebrity get canceled in the news, and then obviously their PR is like, hey, you gotta apologize. Like, most people know that person didn't just change overnight because some Twitter mob got upset about them. But like, we live in a world where that's actually better than that person coming out there and speaking their truth. Like, here's what I actually meant by saying this. I didn't mean to offend anybody by it. I was just being my honest self. It's tricky to navigate. Like, I would rather know that I don't like somebody for a specific reason rather than them lie to me so that I like them.
There's some of this falls on the fans as well. If you go, like, I remember Wanda Sykes had a show where she was doing her Trump jokes. So some people got up and walked out and they were yelling at her. And she's like, I'm Wanda Sykes. I'm an African-American lesbian woman. What did you expect? Did you do your research before you came to my show?
Yes, I remember that. Similarly,
when I'm at a show and I'm making fun of, Trump, or I'm talking about gun control, people get, oh my God, you talk about guns. People go, why you do that? Listen to the joke. And if you don't like it, don't come to my show. What do you expect from me? I'm a left-leaning Iranian-American dude who, if you do any research, you'll know where I am. And so the audience needs to not be as lazy sometimes. I mean, is asking a lot, because somebody might see a clip and they're like, oh, I liked he did a kid joke. I'm gonna go see him. And then they show up and they're like, oh my God, he's getting political. You shouldn't get political. My biggest pet peeve is stick to comedy. I'm like, you stick to whatever it is, plumbing or accounting or whatever miserable thing you do. I'm a political human being. I'm going to express myself. And sometimes those things are going to make you uncomfortable because I'm going to take a side that you're, hyper about. And that's fine. And if I lose fans, I lost fans these past 4 years because there's a lot of conservative people I know that had enjoyed jokes about my kids that didn't look back a few years before when I was still doing political jokes. And I've always been political. So I don't mind losing those fans just to be true to myself. And so, again, all of this, I think, really breaks down to a discussion with yourself. Who am I? What do I stand for? If I said something 10 years ago that was offensive and it's brought to my attention, am I willing to grow and go, oh my God, you're right, I didn't realize that was so harmful? Or am I going to be like, no, these kids now are trying to cancel me because, whatever, I was racist back then. I mean, it's one thing to be like, I said that thing back then, and now in this world, I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? I've grown. We look at a guy like Michael Vick, who got in trouble with the dog fighting, and then he goes to jail and he comes out and he joins, pet organizations and the sort. So you see it as this person evolve in front of you, and you go, wow, I'm an animal lover, but you know what? I'm willing to reach out and go, wow, you've done the work, and it's good to have you on this side now. So ultimately, I think it falls to us, and I think it's really quick and easy and cheap to just go, they're trying to cancel me. Every time you say something, and by the way, I'm not saying that this crazy, sometimes people do jump on something like the gap tooth thing or whatever it is that you go, whoa, calm down. And those are usually the things, if you get 24, 48 hours, they go away. But if it's like, oh, you have attacked minorities for all these years, you've always been on the wrong side of things, and you're constantly getting people criticizing you, then again, look in the mirror and, I don't know, go see a therapist.
I think that's a really good place for us to end today. Matt, Nell, Maz, Suni, Skye, I can't thank you enough for being here. And thank you to everyone who's watching for tuning in. You can go back and rewatch this conversation at TheWrap.com/cancel-culture-series. And also this Friday, June 11th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to be having a discussion on Clubhouse. I'm hoping everyone here will be able to make it. We'll see. Perhaps we'll have some more people on to continue this conversation. And I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you guys all for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.